Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
I didn't see it coming, not the pain, not the fall, not the way everything in my life would snap in half like a worn-out fan belt. One moment I was under a Dodge Ram, wrench in hand, grease under my fingernails, and the next I was on the cold concrete floor, gasping like a fish out of water, spine screaming like someone had lit a fire in it. That sound, the sickening pop in my lower back, it echoed in my ears louder than any engine ever did. I knew, deep down, it wasn't the kind of injury you walk off. The hospital was white, too white, the kind of sterile that makes you feel like a roach under fluorescent lights. They pumped me full of something, I don't even know what, and the days bled together like spilled oil. I faded in and out, not sure what day it was, or who was even still showing up to check on me. But the day Rachel walked in, I was awake just enough to remember every damn word she said. She didn't say hello. Didn't ask how I was feeling. Didn't even look me in the eyes at first. She just stood there, perfect makeup, that tight expression she gets when she's about to make something about her. Then she said it. No warning, no build-up. Just flat, cold, like she was reading it off a script. Since you're useless now, I'm taking the kids and the car. No tremble in her voice. No guilt. Just business. I blinked at her, tried to move my mouth, but it felt like my face was made of lead. My brain was shouting, but my body wasn't cooperating. Maybe that was a mercy, because what I wanted to say would have burned the paint off the walls. Then, like some sick theater production, the door opened again, and in walked Kent. Yeah, that Kent, the lawyer with the gelled hair and the shit-eating grin, the one who once flirted with her at our 4th of July cookout right in front of me. He walked in like he owned the place, pulled out a folder, and set it on the rolling tray next to my drip like it was a pizza order. These are the divorce papers, he said, smiling like we were doing brunch. Rachel's moving forward. She thought it'd be better to take care of this quickly, given your situation. Given my situation. He actually said that. I didn't scream. Didn't grab the force stand and jab it into his eye socket, even though my body was screaming for some kind of revenge. I just looked at Rachel. Really looked. And all I saw was a stranger. 20 years, 2 kids, one garage built from the ground up, wiped clean with one sentence and a stack of legal paperwork. I lifted my hand slowly, like I was dragging it through wet cement, and signed where they told me to. No questions. No conditions. Just the sound of pen on paper and the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor behind me. Kent gave a satisfied little nod, like he'd just closed a big deal, and Rachel? She just turned around and walked out. Didn't even look back. Not once. The silence after that wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Crushing. The kind of silence that makes you question if you ever really knew the person you shared a bed with for over 2 decades. My legs didn't work. My back was stitched together with screws and staples. And the only thing I could move without pain was the part of me that had just been hollowed out. The nurse came in later and tried to make small talk. Asked if I wanted pudding. Pudding. Like I was 5 years old and had just scraped my knee. I told her no, and when she left, I stared at the ceiling until my eyes blurred. I must have fallen asleep, or maybe I just blacked out from the weight of it all, but when I came to, the room was dark and my phone was buzzing on the tray. It was my brother, Dan. We hadn't talked much over the years, life and distance and all that. But that night, his voice had that tone I hadn't heard since we were kids, and he'd found out our dog died before I did. Hey man, he said slowly. You might want to sit down. I almost laughed. I'm already lying down, Dan. Yeah, well, there's more. And it ain't good. I didn't know it then, but that phone call would unravel everything I thought I still had left. Because losing your wife, your kids, and your dignity is one thing. But learning who she ran to right after you lost everything, that's the part that stays with you. That's the part that sets the whole damn fire. And the worst part? I saw it coming. I just didn't want to believe it. Dan didn't sugarcoat it, which I respected because at that point, the last thing I needed was anyone treating me like a goddamn porcelain doll. His voice came through the phone like a slow leak, flat, measured, but there was something in it, a hesitation, Like, even he couldn't believe what he was about to say out loud. She's been seeing Kyle. That name hit harder than the surgery, harder than the divorce papers, harder than the screws still holding my spine together like rusty bolts on a junkyard bumper. Kyle wasn't just some guy. He was my best friend since middle school. We built go-karts in his dad's garage and nearly burned down his shed once because I thought pouring gas on a grill was a good idea. We grew up shoulder to shoulder, wrenching on engines and trading girl advice back when acne was our biggest problem. He was the best man at my wedding. Hell, he introduced me to Rachel. And now, apparently, he was screwing her. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't even hang up the phone. I just listened, staring out the window of that sterile hospital room, watching a bird peck at a crust of toast someone had thrown on the sidewalk below. That bird had more control over its life than I did in that moment. Dan said he was sorry, and I told him thanks, even though I didn't feel anything close to gratitude. Then I ended the call and sat in silence for 2 more days. Nurses came in. Machines beeped. Meals came and went untouched. And through it all, something inside me started to shift, not break, but bend in a way I hadn't felt before. Not sadness. Not even anger. It was something sharper. Something useful. When they finally discharged me, I didn't go home, not to the house I'd built with my own hands, not to the garage that still had my name on the lease. I caught a cab with a pocket full of painkillers and an overnight bag that still smelled like antiseptic. The driver dropped me off at a crumbling little duplex at the edge of town, the kind of place where porch lights don't work and the neighbors mind their own business out of necessity, not politeness. Rent was cheap. The carpet was stained, and the heating barely worked, but it was mine. And more importantly, no one knew I was there. I spent the first few weeks dragging my legs like dead weight from the mattress to the kitchenette and back again. Physical therapy wasn't covered by what little insurance I had left, so I did what any desperate bastard would do. I turned to YouTube. Watched videos of ex-Marines teaching spinal rehab, printed out diagrams, bought resistance bands off Craigslist from some guy who smelled like cat piss and weed. I followed every stretch, every modified push-up, every trembling squat like my life depended on it. And maybe it did. The days bled together, slow and angry and mechanical. But the nights, that's when the other part of the rebuild began. I found an old laptop on Facebook Marketplace. $60. The thing wheezed like a dying animal and had 3 keys missing, but I made it work. I started watching coding tutorials, the free kind, the kind made by guys in hoodies who recorded their screens while guzzling Mountain Dew and ranting about syntax. Python, JavaScript, HTML, I soaked it all in. Not because I cared about coding. Not because I wanted to be the next tech millionaire. But because I needed something to sink my teeth into. Something they couldn't take from me. I worked 16-hour days for 3 months straight. That's nearly 500 hours total. I know that sounds crazy, but desperation has a way of turning you into a machine. I slept in 2-hour chunks, took notes with a dull pencil because I didn't have a printer, and taught myself how to build websites from scratch. I posted gigs online. Started small. Fixing broken code, updating WordPress sites for clueless small business owners who couldn't tell a plugin from a pop-up. Money trickled in slowly at first, like a cracked pipe under pressure, but then it picked up. Not much, but enough. Enough to buy groceries that didn't come in a box. Enough to stop counting quarters for laundry. Enough to remind myself that I wasn't finished, not by a long shot. I didn't call Rachel. Didn't text the kids. Not yet. It wasn't time. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to show up at her door and throw her betrayal in her face. But another part, the colder, smarter part, wanted something else entirely. Not revenge. Not even justice. I wanted distance. Power. Clarity. And I wanted her to feel it when the time came. The weird thing is, I didn't feel empty anymore. I felt sharp. Like a blade being honed. I watched the world go on without me, and I realized something most people never get to see. When you've already lost everything, there's no weight left to carry. You're free in the most terrifying way imaginable. 5 months passed like smoke. Then came the knock. It was 3 in the morning, and I'd been awake, writing code, half drunk on black coffee and adrenaline. The knock wasn't frantic, but it wasn't casual either. It had a rhythm, a hesitation. I opened the door. There she was. Rachel, soaked in rain, hair plastered to her face, mascara streaked down her cheeks like a melting statue. Her lips quivered, and for the first time in our entire marriage, she looked afraid. Not mad, not smug. Afraid. Her voice cracked like a twig snapping underfoot. I didn't know where else to go, and just like that, every plan I'd made, every hour of training, every sleepless night, none of it mattered. Because now the game had changed. And I wasn't the same man she walked away from. She stood in the doorway for a few seconds longer than she should have, like she was waiting for me to slam the door or tell her to get lost. But I didn't. I didn't say a single word. I just stepped aside, the way you do when someone's car breaks down on the highway in the middle of the night and you know helping might screw up your whole day, but you still can't turn your back on them. She stepped in like she was walking into a crime scene she couldn't believe she was part of, dripping rain all over the linoleum, shaking like she'd just escaped a damn hurricane. And maybe she had, in her own way. She looked nothing like the Rachel I used to know, and in that moment I wasn't even sure if she recognized herself anymore. Her hair was matted, sticking to the sides of her pale face, makeup smeared like war paint, eyes hollow and red-rimmed, like someone who hadn't slept in a week or hadn't let herself cry until now. Her coat was soaked through, clutching her body like a drowning dog, and her hands trembled as she tried to peel it off and failed, so I reached over and helped her out of it without saying anything, just unzipped it and let it drop to the floor with a wet slap. She didn't ask if she could sit down. She just did. Dropped herself into the same chair I sat in every night, like she still had a place in the routine of my life, like time hadn't passed and she hadn't detonated the damn thing 5 months ago. I stood across from her, arms crossed, watching her pull herself together with the grace of someone who just realized there's no mask left to wear. She started talking before I asked a single question. "He left me," she said, voice barely louder than the rain slapping against the windows. "Kyle took everything. My money. My car. Hell, even the damn dog." I didn't move. Didn't blink. I just waited. She kept going, eyes darting like she was trying to read my silence like a teleprompter that had gone dark. I came home and the place was empty. Just gone. He used my bank card, emptied all the accounts. "I have nothing, Mike. Nothing." There it was again, that name like it meant something to her still. Like I was a life raft she hadn't appreciated until her yacht sank. My jaw clenched, but I didn't let it show. I sat down slowly, across from her, and nodded toward the kitchen. "You want coffee?" She hesitated, then nodded too quickly, as if grateful for any small act of mercy, any chance to pretend this wasn't what it was. I made it the way I always do, black, bitter, no sugar. I wasn't about to start sweetening things for her now. When I handed her the mug, she wrapped both hands around it like she needed it to stay grounded. Then she said the line I knew was coming, the one I'd rehearsed hearing 100 different ways during those long, quiet nights alone with my thoughts and my vengeance. "I made a mistake." She looked at me then, eyes glassy, searching for something, pity, forgiveness, maybe just a signal that I wasn't going to twist the knife too fast. "I thought I was chasing something better, something easier," she said. "But Kyle, he was never you. He used me. I see that now." I let her speak, because sometimes silence says more than shouting ever could. She cried a little, and for once it didn't feel performative. It felt broken, real, desperate. But something wasn't sitting right. Something didn't add up. She was too rehearsed, too focused on saying all the right things without knowing what they meant. Like she was selling remorse instead of feeling it. I took a slow sip of coffee, then asked the only question that mattered. "Where are the kids?" She froze. Not like she'd been caught lying, but like she hadn't even considered that I'd ask. That was the moment I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't about family. It was about her. "They're with my mom," she said after a pause that went just a second too long. "Safe. Just for now." For now. I asked, voice steady. She nodded, too fast again, staring into her coffee like she thought the answer might float to the top. Then her phone buzzed. Loud. Twice. She jumped. Looked down. Flipped it face down on the table like a gambler hiding a losing hand. It kept buzzing every 20 seconds like an alarm set to panic mode. I watched her closely, but she didn't explain. Just said, sorry. It's nothing. Another lie in a house already filled with ghosts. She said she needed a shower, that she felt disgusting, and I just pointed toward the bathroom without saying a word. As soon as she disappeared down the hallway, I reached over and flipped the phone. The lock screen lit up instantly. 5 missed calls. All from the same name. Kent. Her goddamn divorce lawyer. The same one who handed me papers in a hospital room while I was still stitched together and drugged out of my skull. The same smarmy bastard who smiled like he was closing a deal on a used Lexus. What the hell did she still need from him? I stared at the screen, the buzzing now replaced by a sick, heavy silence. There was something she wasn't telling me. Something big. And I'd bet every busted vertebra in my back that this wasn't about Kyle, or love, or regret. She didn't come here because she missed me. She came because she needed me. The question was, how badly? And how much was she willing to lie to get what she came for? She came out of the shower wearing one of my old hoodies, the one with the ripped cuff and the faded logo from a mechanics conference I went to in Vegas a decade ago, back when Rachel still pretended to give a damn about the garage. She looked smaller somehow, not just because she'd lost weight, but because she'd lost control, and people who've spent years pulling puppet strings tend to shrink when the stage starts burning down around them. I handed her a blanket, she wrapped herself up like a burrito, and we sat on opposite sides of the room, the air thick with all the things neither of us were saying. I played it cool. That's the thing about being broken and rebuilt, you learn patience. You learn how to sit still while your blood is boiling, how to nod while someone lies straight to your face, how to wait for the exact moment they hand you the weapon to burn them down. I didn't ask why Kent was calling. I didn't bring up the fact that she'd avoided my question about the kids like it was a rattlesnake under the couch. I didn't mention that her story about Kyle didn't make any damn sense, because Kyle never had that kind of pull. He was a leech, not a mastermind. And if he really did run off with her money, I'd bet my left hand she helped him get it in the first place. Instead, I told her she could stay for a few days. Just until she figured things out. I handed her the old keys to the duplex like I was handing her a second chance, and the way her fingers curled around them, tight and greedy, I knew I'd just given her something she thought she could use against me. That's the thing about people like Rachel. They can't help themselves. They think they're always one step ahead, always the smartest person in the room, even when they're standing in the exact trap they helped build. I started recording everything. My phone, my laptop, a pocket recorder hidden under the couch cushion she sat on every night. I kept the conversations light, casual, like I was just happy to have someone to share coffee with again. I asked her about Kyle in passing, acted like I wanted to understand what had happened, and she fed me the usual story, how he took advantage of her, how she signed paperwork she didn't read, how everything had been put in her name because he said it would make taxes easier. That part got my attention. She wasn't just in over her head, she was drowning in it. And the way she kept glancing at her phone, waiting for a message that never came, told me the hole was deeper than she wanted to admit. A few nights later, she slipped. Just a little. Just enough. They're investigating the business, she muttered, almost like she was talking to herself. They think I knew, that I signed off on everything. I asked who they were, and she froze like a raccoon caught in a flashlight beam. Then she smiled, that old rehearsed Rachel smile, the one she used to use on cops when we got pulled over speeding. Just the bank. Nothing serious. I didn't press. Not yet. Instead, I made a show of being understanding. Supportive even. I told her I had some documents I'd never filed, old stuff from the garage, business filings, asset transfers, that kind of thing. I said maybe we could move things around, protect what little we had left. Her eyes lit up like a slot machine hitting 777s. The next morning, I left a folder on the kitchen table. Inside was a set of fake documents I'd mocked up the night before, bank statements, ownership agreements, even a fake notarized deed to a property I didn't actually own. All tied back to her. All just believable enough to look legit if you were desperate and dumb enough to want them to be. She took the bait. She thought I didn't see her snap a photo with her phone when she thought I'd stepped out for groceries. She thought I didn't notice her text someone minutes later. She thought I wasn't watching every damn move she made. She sent that photo to Kent. I saw the message leave her phone on the network traffic monitor I'd rigged up, basic stuff, but enough to watch the data come and go. And the file name matched the one I'd put on the fake doc, garage_asset transfer_final. She still trusted Kent, even now. Or maybe she didn't trust him, but knew he was the only one with enough teeth to help her out of the mess she was in. Either way, she walked right into it. That night, I sat in the living room, lights off, sipping black coffee that had gone cold hours earlier, and waited for her to say something. Anything. She didn't. She just acted normal. Made dinner. Washed the dishes. Laughed at a joke on the TV like we were a married couple again, like 5 months hadn't passed since she dropped divorce papers on my hospital tray and told me I was useless. Around 11, she went to bed. And I waited. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Private number. No name. No history. Just one message. She's lying to you. Meet me tonight. No punctuation. No signature. No location. Just the words like a goddamn hammer between the eyes. I stared at the screen for a long time, the blood pounding in my ears, and then looked toward the bedroom, where Rachel slept soundly, curled up in a bed she didn't deserve to be in, under a roof she tried to take from me. She thought she'd played the game better this time. She thought I was still the same fool who signed those papers without a word. But I'd stopped playing her game the second she knocked on my door. Now? Now we were playing mine. The parking lot was empty except for a flickering streetlight and the ghost of every bad decision that ever ended up in a place like this. It was the kind of spot where people exchanged secrets, not pleasantries, where honesty came cheap because lies had already cost too much. The message said midnight, and I got there 5 minutes early, not because I trusted him, but because I wanted to see how he walked up, whether it was like a man with answers or a coward with regrets. Cal pulled up in a car that looked like it had been borrowed from a junkyard, tires bald, paint peeling, a plastic bag duct-taped over a shattered window like a makeshift bandage. He stepped out, thinner than I remembered, hair a mess, eyes sunken deep into a face that had once smiled too easily. Now he looked like a man who hadn't smiled in weeks, maybe months. A man who'd bet the house, the kids' college fund, and the soul of the woman who once sat beside him and lost every last chip. He didn't reach for a handshake. Smart. We weren't those kind of men anymore. He lit a cigarette with shaking fingers and looked at me like he didn't quite believe I was real. "I'm not here to make peace," he said before I even opened my mouth. "I'm here because if I don't tell someone the truth, I'm gonna drink myself into the ground." I didn't say anything. Just nodded once, letting him keep digging his own grave. He told me everything. How Rachel had played him like a fiddle, how the business they started was a shell built on forged contracts and empty accounts, how he'd been the face for a while until she convinced him to shift everything into her name to protect him from liability. How she'd pulled out the rug once the money stopped rolling in, froze the accounts, and fed him to the wolves. Only the wolves turned out to be IRS agents and a pissed-off bookie with a fondness for broken kneecaps. She planned it, he said, eyes glassy with shame and nicotine. From day one. She wanted you out, wanted the garage, wanted me for the short-term gains, then figured she'd dump us both when it suited her. He pulled out his phone, cracked screen barely holding together, and played a voice memo. Her voice, clear as day. Talking to Kent. Saying my name. Saying things like, Mike will be too proud to fight back, and if we time the filing right, he won't even see it coming. There was laughter. Laughter from both of them. Not nervous laughter, not scared laughter. The kind you only hear from people who believe the world is theirs to burn, and no one will ever stop them. I thanked Kyle. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed to. Because without that final piece, the whole picture wasn't clear. Now it was. I went home. The lights were on. The smell of fresh coffee drifted down the hallway. Rachel was standing in the kitchen wearing my hoodie, humming a tune she used to sing when the kids were little, back when things still made sense. She turned and smiled like we were just two tired lovers trying to rebuild something shattered, like we hadn't scorched the entire history between us down to ash. I sat at the table, leaned back in the chair, and watched her pour a second mug. She handed it to me with a tenderness so practiced it was almost impressive. I didn't drink it. Funny, I said, slow and steady, letting each word hang in the air like fog. You never asked what I've been up to these 5 months. Her face didn't flinch, but her hand twitched slightly. A tell. Like a gambler waiting for the flop. I reached into the drawer, pulled out a folder. The real one this time. The one with signatures, timestamps, and notarized documents, papers that transferred ownership of the garage back to me, completely and legally. Her name scrubbed clean. No trace. Not even a ghost of authority left. She took the folder, opened it, and I watched her eyes widen like someone watching a tsunami roll in, knowing the wave was too close to run from. I never filed the IRS paperwork, I added, voice like sandpaper. The ones you begged me to send in last week? I shredded them. Thought I'd wait and see how this little reunion of ours played out. She dropped the folder. Please, she whispered, stepping forward, suddenly smaller again. Mike, I'm sorry. I didn't know who I was, and maybe she didn't. Maybe she really had lost herself in the con, in the thrill of playing queen to her own broken kingdom. But standing there, face flushed, voice shaking, she didn't look like someone who had found herself again. She looked like someone who had run out of options. I stood up, walked slowly to the door, opened it. Cold air poured in, sharp and biting, like it had been waiting for this moment all night. She looked at me like I was the one abandoning her now. Like I was the villain for choosing peace over poison. Her eyes filled with tears that might have been real this time. Might have. I know who you are now, I said, flat and final. That's enough for me. She didn't argue. Didn't scream. Just stepped outside like a woman who finally understood the door wasn't going to open again. I closed it behind her. And then I just stood there. No victory music. No cheers. Just the quiet sound of my own breath and the faint clink of the mug she'd set down on the table, cooling fast. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel free. I felt hollow. Like I'd won a war, only to find the land I reclaimed wasn't worth planting on. But sometimes, knowing the truth is the only thing that keeps the ground from opening up beneath you. And sometimes, the last door you close is the one that finally lets the silence in.